So we are recording. Alrighty, so welcome to our 6th and final week of Mastering Difficult Conversations online. Just making sure that everything is, I believe everybody is muted. I'm just muting everybody there. So by all means, like it's been with every other week, you've got any questions or you want to be able to interject, please just feel free to unmute yourself. There is no slide presentation tonight, so you only get to see me as we start to wrap up. So a couple things that we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to talk about success versus failure. I think that that's an important touch point of how do we know when we've succeeded with our difficult conversations? How do we know if we've failed? What do we do in either case scenario? A couple of other what ifs that have been brought forward from last week's session. So I want to be able to go through those because they were awesome and great examples, and more on that personal family side. And then a couple of really key next steps that I wanted to be able to offer you all of continuing your success with mastering difficult conversations. So as a society, we kind of have become conditioned that there is usually, like even if you look up in the dictionary of what the definition of success is, that there seems to be this singular one event or one kind of keynote of what success is. And if you look up failure, there is kind of like numerous of definitions of what failure is. And when it comes to mastering difficult conversations, sometimes we have to try over and over and over again to be able to get into the groove or to be able to really pick up on some of those cues that we've been talking about over the course of 6 weeks. So I really want to encourage you to redefine what success looks like for you. Redefine what failure is for you. And failure really becomes the indication that you're trying, that you're doing your part. And success could be measured at very different things. Maybe it is progress, not perfection in the relationship. Maybe it is meeting you part way. Maybe it does include compromise. Maybe it includes, you being able to set boundaries for the first time. Maybe it is about that you've been able to actually speak up and have a voice to your truth, where before that wasn't part of it. So I'm going to encourage you as you kind of go along that just because the conversation didn't go as you had planned, as you had anticipated, even if you had, your script down perfectly, even though you had considered the type of personality that you were speaking with, even if you've worked really hard on understanding your own personality and what kind of were some of the productive behaviors or destructive behaviors, and you considered and you kind of mapped that all out, and it didn't go as planned, that it doesn't mean that it was a complete failure or that you shouldn't have it again. I've had to sometimes go back and approach difficult conversations as I've become more clear on what my intent was, or as I've become more clear on what my needs were, or as I've become more clear that there was a different way of approaching it or a different way of presenting it to help me be heard better. So I'll give you a couple of really quick examples. That I've had coaching conversations when I was in my corporate role, to redefine what expectations were. And there still was not change in performance. So it was an opportunity for me to be able to go back and evaluate what I had said. Had I been clear enough to be able to go back and ask the important questions of why wasn't the behavior changing? Maybe situations had changed for the employee. Maybe there was a different way of me being able to approach it. Was there other resources that we could have put in play? So just because there wasn't a change that first time doesn't mean that it's not worth revisiting. And in fact, employment standards and if you work alongside with your HR professional, would say that that's the reason why you don't dismiss after one conversation, right? That it's progressive performance and improvement conversations, the 3 strikes you're out type deal, those kind of progressive conversations in the corporate world. So I would also say that I've had that experience of needing to be able to come back and have difficult conversations on a personal level that haven't been as successful. When Honor and I were first dating, we were still trying to figure out how each other communicates, how we prefer to communicate with one another. It is also kind of, as you establish trust, you're able to go deeper and deeper into those difficult conversations or kind of unfamiliar territory. So I've had to come back and re-clarify it. There's been times I've also had to even come back in difficult conversations and said, I've had a moment to be able to reflect on the difficult conversation I needed to have with myself and now feel differently about this. So being able to present it from a different perspective or a different angle, or be able to even come back. We touched on this last week briefly of, I think that there's still some confusion. I think that there was a different way that I could have been able to approach this. I think that we still need to clarify what expectations are or what feelings are or kind of what next steps are to be able to revisit that. And I've had to do that a number of times within my personal relationship with Honor, but even with my children, with my other family members, and with some close friends of, I'm still not feeling that there's some resolution there and been able to come back to it. So just because it doesn't go the way that you planned doesn't mean that it was failure, that it might actually present a different opportunity. And then sometimes, it's redefining what success was. Like I said, in the example of maybe it's progress rather than perfection, right? Employers that are able to see increase in performance, we don't just write the whole conversation off. We recognize that there is some improvement, and then we re-clarify where there's still some expectation for progress. And very similar in relationships too. At the end of the day, I have some relationships that I know the person is not going to change and become this completely new person. So I've had to ask myself, where kind of is that line for me? And, is it about salvaging the relationship? Is it about making progress in the relationship? Where is the win-win solution that we've talked about over the last 6 weeks? Can be more defined as the success point. So that kind of brings me to the two what ifs that were brought forward this week. So one of them was about what if the answer is no? So I'm making a request in this particular situation, making a request of an adjustment of hours with their employer, that there's some background history, but what happens if the answer is no? And that's a great question. And we've kind of touched on this, but I wanted to be able to take the opportunity to go deeper. Most of our difficult conversations are going to be requesting some sort of change. So either a change in the circumstance, a change in behavior, we're asking the other person to change, we're redefining that there's a change going on for us. Maybe it is of setting a personal boundary that's a change. And really, at the end of the day, when we're talking about that to-be state, we've got to be really clear about what our line is. It's kind of like if you've ever watched that show Intervention, right? They get really clear of, I love you, but if you're not willing to get help today, I am no longer going to pay your bills. I'm no longer going to do this. I'm no longer going to drive you to the liquor store, whatever. Kind of the same thing. If the answer is no, then, thank you for caring enough to share. But then I have a responsibility to make the best decision for myself then. And so I have to decide if no is good enough. There might be situations that no is okay. And at least I know where I stand now. At least I know what the parameters are. At least I asked, and that's okay for me to move forward. But if the answer no is not helping me, succeed at being the best potential of myself that I can be, maybe it's limiting some of me being able to fulfill my basic needs, I have to ask myself, is it worth it then? And for some, it might mean that it becomes the deal breaker, right? So if a matter of reducing my hours is helping me thrive in another area of my life or meeting a personal need in another area, it very well might become the deal breaker of, I know where I stand with my employer. Now the decision is up to me. And so I might then start to take action of looking for different employment that's going to be flexible with the hours that I require. I might be making steps to leave the organization or apply for a different position or whatever that looks like. No might be a deal breaker too, if it's, because one of the other what if scenarios that was kind of along this line too as well is, I want to be able to have another child. My husband is not on the same page as me, doesn't want to further have any more children. So what happens if the answer is no? It very well might be that you and your husband explore differences of what that family looks like. It might be another deal breaker of, that you want to be able to have the opportunity of increasing your family size. So it might be, asking for professional intervention to be able to work through what that solution and what that situation looks like. So I think at the end of the day, you need to really know what your bottom line is. What is the deal breaker point for you? What are you looking for? Where is the compromise? And where is that change of absolutely not, that's not going to work for me? And no is not the worst answer either. No gives clarity, and like we've talked about before, clarity provides you with power. So no helps you understand exactly where you stand and helps you make different decisions for yourself. So as scary as it is to hear no could actually be the freedom. And we talked about that last week too, when I had said that, 90% of the people that I've let go in my professional life, have landed better and landed in better jobs. Sometimes that is the jumping off point for them, that it's helped them, push and stretch in a different way or risk in a different way to be able to help them find work that was more motivating or satisfying or fulfilling for their purpose. So no doesn't always have to be a negative answer. The other what if that I got was about, what if you're at a point where the conversation's just over? Like that, other family members might not think that it's over. Other family members might want you to have the conversation still. Maybe that they want you to continue to have this difficult conversation with a particular member, but you're at the point of like, enough's enough. So like I had said before I think you need to get to a place where you feel satisfied with the outcome, or you feel satisfied that there is no outcome. So it's a place of acceptance of, if you can get to a point of it is what it is and that you're okay with the change not happening, then maybe it is over. Maybe it is about asking yourself, like I think the example that I gave a couple of weeks ago was, maybe it's furthermore of a conversation that you need to have with yourself of, are you prepared to accept the things that are without your control. I guess and I think I've probably used this before, but I had a conversation with a friend once where it was with my mentor, that I was talking about how particular family members just don't change. that it's constantly the same conversation over and over again. I've had to redefine my boundaries over and over again. Nothing changes, nothing changes. And her response to me was, funny, neither does your reaction to them. And I was like, oh, well, so instead of just pointing the finger about how I was expecting them to change and all of the stuff that I wanted them to do, or the change or the conversation completion that I wanted from them, that it was more about turning that into me of, what am I willing to change? What do I need to work on? What do I need to accept? And that, some people are not going to jump to change or want to be able to change just because I've asked them to. And so I can either accept and move on, or don't accept and continue to be in turmoil. Now, once again, I don't mean about tolerating abuse. That we don't need to put ourselves in a position where we become doormat for people or venting posts for people. That's not what I mean. I really do encourage of setting boundaries. I'm responsible for teaching people how to treat me. I'm responsible for my reactions and my respond abilities, like we've talked about before. So, if it comes to boundary setting, it's about stating that boundary. And if people choose to ignore my boundaries, I need to make some good decisions for myself. And it might be about removing that type of toxic relationship or somebody that's not willing to respect my boundaries out of my life. And the only time that those relationships have remained, and like I've encouraged in previous recordings, is been about, if it's a relationship with a child, and that we're parenting of those children. So, but even then, I have boundaries with my children that, in order to remain healthy boundaries, I've had to restate, and I have to keep them accountable to it. And if they're not willing to be accountable or respect my boundaries, that simply I end the conversation, and that I've walked away from conversations. So family, it becomes a little tricky because we don't choose our family, but I think we still get to have that choice, similar to the receiving an answer of no. We get to have that choice of whether we accept the outcome or not, and that we're able to make better informed decisions for ourselves when we've got the clarity of what the answer is. So I hope for those two what ifs that gives a little more clarity and understanding of kind of what your role is in mastering those difficult conversations, and then also the further clarity about success and failure, right? And it's about continuing to try and measuring success and failure in a different way. Is there any questions on any of that before I move on? No? Okay, good. So now it was also that there was a couple of emails that I had received too about furthering steps, like, so what happens if I get stuck? Some of the what ifs around down the road. So I'm really going to encourage you all, and I've done this with previous groups too, is that I'm going to encourage you all to book a one-to-one with me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow up with an email of a link that you can be able to just schedule a brief session. For some of you, it might be a 15-minute session. For some of you, it might be a 30-minute session, just to be able to walk through one of your specific conversations, one-to-one, and a bit about what your planning was around it, how you plan to be able to approach, what are your expected outcomes, so that way if you need an assistance of a coach, or the specifics, what if steps that haven't been addressed in these sessions, that I'm able to assist you with it. So please look for that email that's coming out to you all. That it's complimentary as part of this 6-week program, to be able to walk through your specifics, and if you need any specific direction or next steps or strategies on how to be able to approach that. Some of you have already had strategy sessions with me, so you've got an understanding a little bit about that. We talk about the why, the importance of the conversation, what you're hopeful of the outcomes are, and then some simple strategies to be able to put in place. So very similar to this as well. That it would be more of a review of high level of what that difficult conversation is for you, what you were hoping to get out of it, and then how I might be able to help with adding some of those specific strategies to your scenarios. I also wanted to be able to follow up specifically for your feedback as well. You know, did you get value out of the last 6 weeks? Do you see yourself putting or implementing some of the steps that we talked about? What other kind of workshops or online courses could Change My Life Coaching be able to provide you to further enhance your skills around mastering difficult conversations and really impact and improve your relationships, whether that be with your supervisor, your employees, your other coworkers, or with your family and relationships. So in that email that I'm sending you, that's got that link to be able to book your one-to-one with me. I'm also going to be asking for specific feedback to help us continue to improve. There's been a lot. These recordings will continue to be available for you for another 2 weeks. So I know that there are some people that have reached out that have missed because of holidays or because of other commitments. So I wanted to encourage you to, go review the recordings. You might want to review certain weeks. You might want to review all of them. So those will continue to be available for you for the next 2 weeks. As we continue to wrap up. Of course, I'm still available for you as well. And I also wanted to be able to extend if it's, if you wanted to be able to book that one-to-one with me or any of the other coaches with Change My Life Coaching as well. So Kyle Kalu of doing the business, the executive leadership coaching, or Christopher Lawrence, who does more of the career development motivation coaching. And I specialize more in that relationship and family coaching. So I wanted to be able to extend that all to you as well. We also publish a newsletter once a month with Change My Life Coaching, and we have a number of blogs that are dedicated to this subject that come out in our monthly newsletter, but also that you can find our blog, if I could talk right now, our blog selection on our website. So if you go to changemylifecoaching.ca, you'll be able to see our blog content. I know that I've shared with you guys about the top 3 most difficult conversations to have. My blog is in there, as well as if you are on Facebook, the Change My Life Coaching page, there's also a video selection about those. But Kyle and Christopher, as well as Catherine Monroe, have also talked a lot about mastering difficult conversations, how to set boundaries, or even for those of you that have discovered that your difficult conversation is within yourself. So whether it's about the conversation you need to have about motivation to get your goals done, about whether it's the difficult conversation with yourself about career change, maybe it's about, finding time. Catherine Monroe last month wrote a great blog about the new 4-letter word called busy, right? And how we default to busyness. So whether it's around some of that or around boundary setting, there's lots of resources within our blog or on our website that should be able to assist you in continuing with your learning as well. So really quickly, as I wrap up our discussions tonight, I wanted to be able to give a moment if you have any questions or have any comments to be able to jump in. So I'll ask Donna and Susanna are on with me tonight. So if either of you have any questions or any comments, and maybe I have a question for both of you while you're on with me, is when that first week we had talked about what were you hoping to get out of this? If you remember, we did that parking lot exercise, and we did the. So if you flip to that page in your journal, or if you've got that handy, did you feel that you accomplished most of what you were hoping for out of this course? So both of you are nodding your heads. Awesome, good. Do you feel that you've got the resources and the connections that if you didn't, that you'd be able to reach out to be able to obtain those? Yes, okay, good. So, so there's not much more for this evening. I really want to thank you all for attending the last 6 weeks. Once again, on Thursday, I'm gonna. Facebook Live wouldn't let me go last week. Apparently with the new update to Facebook, they had eliminated live from the update. I've since got the update that we're all good to go. So I'm hoping to be able to do one more live session for us this week to be able to encourage any of those last minute emails that want to be able to come through or questions, and also give Christopher Lawrence an opportunity to join us online. But other than that, I'll start reaching out to you guys by the end of the week to be able to book those one-to-ones as well as follow up for the feedback. Awesome. Great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. And we'll connect with all of you soon. Have a good night.